So, a very warm welcome to the Family Constellation Virtual Training Module 2. As always, I'm going to share the slides and we go through it together. And if there are any questions, please have your notebook ready and write it when you think of it, write it in there, and then we will have no time and slots when we have a Q&A. So we are staying in the flow, and as you know, this is going to be recorded, but this is still important that you are fully focused the 3 hours, because nothing sticks so much as if you are, interacting. That's the whole point of it. Otherwise, I could make a recording on Teachable or Skillshare or whatnot. but the course is so valuable because we have this interaction with each other, and that's great that I see you on the module. Okay, so screen sharing. Here we go. So here we are. So in case you have not found out the way to watch in Zoom every participant and the screen share, there is the option to switch your view to gallery view. So that's what you want. You want gallery view, and then you can move the gallery view under your camera, left or right or whatever, so it's not on top of the slide. And if you don't see at the moment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, then you can drag. There's a little arrow on the bottom right corner in the gallery view that you can drag down, and then all participants will appear, which is 5 at the moment, and then you can see everybody and the slides. So hope that makes sense. And I will also mute you until we have our bit of a Q&A, because it is taking out a lot of background noise for everybody. Okay. All right, let's start. So in training module 2, we are discovering what mens. Mens is a direct translation from the German words that Bert Hellinger is using, finden, was wirkt. And I have translated as finding what mens, because he's not talking about healing. He's talking about that, what actually, works, what has an effect. That's how he sees his work. And I think that's quite lovely. I have talked about, I'm not sure if I have talked about that on module 1. I do use the word healing. I have not a big problem with it, but I know it's such a broadly used word. And then the more traditional healing professions, like medicine professions, so they don't like to hear the word healing, so much from the mouth of not scientifically approved and testified healing professions. However, you are entitled and allowed to use this word healing. It is not a legal thing. And I do use it occasionally, but mending is also a beautiful word I think we can use, especially in families and family systems. So finding what mends. We don't need the copyrights, because on the course there everybody is subscribed, so we just I don't know how to stop that. We just let it run through while I talk. And then we go. No, I really want that gone. Hang on. I know now. Here, I got it. Right. Okay. So the overview of module 2. We are talking about the powers of words. And the astounding thing is that in the Orders of Love, Bert Hellinger has found out that there's only 3 words needed for all family constellations, the whole world, for all eternity, that are mending that what is missing. And these are the powerful words: yes, please, and thank you. Now, the art of family constellation is to find the right situation to apply the right word in the right order to the right representatives. That's it in a nutshell, right? This is family constellation. So when we need to look at the three words and when and how to apply it, and we need to look at the relationships in which we want to apply them, right? So these relationships are, and we go through all of this. So in part one, so we have three parts: today, tomorrow, and on Sunday, right? So today we go through the power of words in general, and we talk in specific about the word yes. We also talk about the three patterns of relationships that we use, that we see in family constellations and where we use the words. We talk about the three dynamics in family systems. This is great. We all can count to three, so it's always three, so we can easily remember that. We talk about the first dynamic today, which is atonement or reparations for my sins. And then the other two dynamics and the other two words is either tomorrow or the next day. So tomorrow would be the word please. It would be the second dynamic, rather me than you. And we talk about the morphogenetic field, and we talk about fatal diseases in this on this day. And then on part three, which would be Sunday, we look at the word thank you. We look at the third dynamic in family systems, I follow you. And we are talking about that, finding what mends in forms of words, but not only words, because also gestures, eye contact, movements, all of these are mending. So it's not only the words. Okay, let's go into part one, which is today. The healing power of yes. Yes is a very strong word. And it's not only in family constellation, it's in your life, in the life of everyone, a very strong word. And why that is, it is so interesting to look at it from a, dive deep into it, why this is so important and what it does in the system. So on the soul level, on an energy level, on the body even. And of course, then to be observed and used in family constellation. So what are we seeing today is we are going into a groundbreaking book, will I say, philosophy of Bert Hellinger, Acknowledging What Is. It is his first book he has ever written. It's I don't even know how old it is, maybe 35, I don't know, 30 years or something like that. It is still the best one, I think, on the market. He has wrote 50 books. It is available. You can find it in the English translation, which is Acknowledging What Is, because in German he called it Anerkennen, was ist. And the direct translation is Acknowledging What Is. And there is a paperback booklet that you can find in second-hand markets on the internet, and maybe even in the library. I think Mariella found it in the library of somebody. So you never know. So why this so groundbreaking is because the word yes has all to do with acknowledging what is. We are talking in module 2, part 1, which is today, about the orders of words. We are talking about the word yes in specific. We are talking the three patterns of relationships. We are talking about what are dynamics in family systems. And we are looking at a specific dynamic, which is called, also translated from the German, reparations for my sins. And yeah, and that's for today. And that's a big program anyhow. So let's start. Acknowledging what is. What does that mean? And why is it so important that we start with it today? Acknowledging what is always at the start of a family constellation. This is the start of a family constellation. Without acknowledging what is, family constellation do not take place. Why is that? Because it is fundamental for a movement of a soul. And that is what we see in family constellation, the movement of the souls. And for them, it is fundamental two things. The first one is to find that what is true and to admit it. Very powerful. And you know that if you think about it, if you think about counseling for addictions, like the anonymous alcoholics and everything, they all have to admit what they are addicted to, and they have to speak it out, right? And that is for every other thing, for everything. As long as it's not acknowledged, meaning it is admitted, and it is admitted, the truth is admitted, not something else. You know, nothing can really be healed. Nothing can really move forward, right? And that is the same in family constellation. It has a slightly different twist. Of course, that is what we learn on the course, but it is the same groundbreaking fundamental insight, acknowledging what it is, finding the truth and admit it. So how do we do that in a family constellation? We will talk about that, how we find the truth. How we admit it is with the word yes, in all its variation. It does not need to be only the word yes. It can be a lot of other sentences that have the same meaning and that are more specific to the situation. And we will go through lots of them as a matter of example. This sentence, this admitting of the truth that you as a facilitator would suggest to a representative to say is often the right thing if it's hard to do. It might even sound harsh, often it does, or unconventional, and it is normally short. It is not long. It is short sentence. It does not even need to be grammatically correct. It speaks to the soul, right? So don't forget it. It's not, you're not standing there in a family constellation and explaining anything, or you are not teaching anything, or you are not, reciting anything. It is brief, to the point, and it's guided by the field. It's the words coming from the field, right? And if somebody starts to blob around, this is not connected to the field, right? That is looking in the mind for answers of a problem. That's not family constellation. We want to be connected to the morphic field, yeah? And want to channel, if you will, exactly that, what the family system needs in this moment to heal or to mend. And it is very often unconventional. And that was why Bert Hellinger was also so controversial, because the words that he used in the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s to acknowledge what is, to allow the representatives to acknowledge what is, they were quite shocking sometimes. Shocking in the social context, in the society context. They were not polite. Let's put it that way. And yeah, and that is why he has been criticized, especially when it was about children and parents and victim and perpetrators. So we will look at some details of that later when it comes up on our chart. So remember, it is okay and it is desirable to be unconventional with these short sentences. Acknowledging what is, or let's say to find what is truth, is only through observation. And that is the art of family constellation and why everybody needs so much experience. It only comes through observation, right? When Bert Hellinger started his, or not he and his wife with the Hellinger School started this this training with a degree which I have done. There was no theory. There was never a chart like this ever. I had never had any of this. We were required to come to like over 150 hours of family constellation conducted by Bert Hellinger. Also here. That was it. That was a training, basically. And then we have a little bit of gatherings, and that was it. And reading books. That is actually the most important part, right? So through practice in observation, you will learn more and more to see what in a specific relationship is true. And when you learn the content of the training and you can recall it when you observe in a workshop a dynamic, it is not, you don't have to fish in the dark. You know exactly, you have like a variety of 10 or what possibilities. And then you just have to observe which one is it. Yeah. This is actually what we do. This is what you learn. You know your tools, like a plumber has a toolbox, yeah, and you have water breakage in your kitchen and you are desperate. The floor is wet and you don't know how to stop it. There's no way. And then call the plumber, and the plumber comes with his toolkit and says, oh, no problem. And he does this and that and this and that. Everything is fixed. 5 minutes. And you think it's magic, right? And that's the same what we learn here. We have a toolkit and we want to apply it toolkit and it looks like magic, but in fact it is simple and humble plumbing work. You know, we fix a hole in the pipe. That's what we do. Okay. So observation is the key to find that what is true, and then admit it with the word yes, or with all variations of the word yes that is appropriate in this specific relationship that you are actually observing. So that's the take-home message. Okay, so the word yes is in this form, acknowledging what is, would more be a sentence like, I did this, I see this, I feel this. This is acknowledging what is, right? So you would ask a representative that you see the representative is sad. You would suggest to the representative to say, I am sad. That's it. And then see what happens, because you will see there is all of a sudden an energy flow just through acknowledging that was really is true, right? If you would ask this representative to say, I am happy, nothing would happen because it isn't the truth. Yeah. But the sadness is the truth. Now, when nothing happens, it might not be his sadness, because we are talking about entanglements in family constellations, right? So chances are that the sadness is actually from somebody else, right? So when I am sad doesn't sound to the representative true, which you always ask, is this true for you? And then if you don't see it, often you see it immediately, but if you're not sure, you can ask the representative, is this true? Are you sad? And then you say, no, I'm actually not sure. And then you say, okay, then say, I am sad for this other person. And that might be the truth, right? So this is how you go step by step and find that what is true. And you can skip, in this example, the sadness altogether and say, okay, let's just forget the sadness. Let's try it with angry, because that sadness and anger looks quite similar. And then you would suggest to the representative to say, I am angry. And then there would be probably like a relief and say, yeah, actually this feels much better, meaning it is true, right? So you have the freedom when you work with yourself and others to always forget what you have suggested and try something else, right? Never stick to anything that doesn't work. If the plumber comes in and instead of tidying up the pipe would start to figure around with the light switch, right? And the water wouldn't stop. Well, why would he continue to do the light switch thing? He would just say, oh, forget the light switch. Let the electrician do that. I do the pipe for the water, right? So that's what we do as well. So feeling is important, seeing is important. And if you see already in a family constellation an action has been done, then the action is important. And that's it. That's acknowledging what is. And often, if you have a victim and perpetrator relationship, the perpetrator has to say to the victim, I killed you. I murdered you. I aborted you, mother to a child. And that's very hard to do. But it is important. Right? It is important. And this is why it is really good if your client if your client has chosen a representative for him or herself. Because it's much easier for the representative to say it than for the client. And it has the same effect through the connection of the morphic field. Another thing why Bert Hellinger was so controversial, can you imagine? He made women say, I aborted you. Fact is, it had such a healing effect. Why would you deny it, right? Just because you don't like to hear the truth. That's silly, eh? So that means you never, ever insist that somebody says something to somebody else which is not the truth. Yeah. On the other hand. So first of all, finding the truth and then admitting it. Okay. Right. So the orders of words. We have the orders of love, module 1, and now we have the orders of words. We are talking about the 3 basic words, yes, thank you, and please. But always in the back, in the hind head, remember, each of this word has a lot of different variations in form of sentences that you can use. But if not a specific sentence comes to your mind, then yes, thank you, and please is the right one. Can always be applied. All right. Now, what is the relationships of these words in the orders of love, which I call the orders of words? It depends on the relationship. Now, before we determine how the words work, we have to look at the relationships that are used in Bert Hellinger's work, right? So, and then when we have the relationship, then we have also the sentences of resolution. So that's a term that means nothing else like either the word yes, thank you, or please in a form of a longer sentence, which is more specific to the situation. That is what is called the sentence of resolution. That is the sentence that brings resolution to the family soul. Okay. Now we go into the 3 patterns of relationship. We have first and foremost the relationship from parent to child. Yeah. So what is this word yes meaning and the relationship from parent to child? Then we have the relationship from child to parent. And then we have to find out in which order it is appropriate to use the words, which is the order please, thank you, and yes. And we will talk about that in a second specifically. And then the third pattern of relationship is in partnerships, right? And there it is to apply yes, please, and thank you. So you see, it's kind of not even reversed. It's just a different order. And it makes sense once you look at it closely. So let's start with the relationship father-mother to child. Remember, the love always flows like a river from the source to the sea. Never back. Water doesn't flow back. And that is the same with the energy of love. The energy of love flows from the parents to the child, not back. And I'm not talking about that the children don't love their parents. I'm talking about the energy of love that is nourishing and caring, yeah, and that is actually giving something, giving, right? Something giving for survival, so to speak, yeah. This is the energy of love that is flowing from the parents to the child. And when you think about that, the word yes is the only appropriate word that mother and father can say to their child. Yes, I have borne you. Yes, I have raised you. Yes, I have nourished you. Yes, I have cared for you. Yes, yes, yes. That's all that can happen, right? And there is no need for a thank you from the child. So you would never demand a thank you from a child. And I know a lot of people do that, and they wonder why they have such a bad relationship to their child. It is not in the order of love. Right? Gratitude and love from the children to the parents is natural, you know. And how do they show it is through respect, through honoring, through taking what they got from their parents and making something out of it, making a good life. That's how they show their gratitude, right? And that's important. And when the parents expect anything else than that, then they have a problem with their children. Mhm. Because when the parents were children, it was exactly the same, right? They were not required to give the same love and care the parents had for them back. He was required to give it to their children, to let let the water flow in one direction, right? This nourishing, caring love flows in one direction only. So in a family constellation, when you have a constellation where a parent and a child are standing opposite of each other, and there is a stuck energy, there's only one thing a parent can say, not the child, but the parent. Yes, I love you. I'm here. Yes, that's all. That's all there's needed. Parents are not entitled to do anything else. They don't need to beg their children to come, or they don't need to thank their children. For what would they thank their children? So it is only this acknowledging, yes, I'm here, I love you. So now always the question comes, of course, yeah, but what is if the parent were abusing the child or even killed the child or what not, yeah? What is in this tragedies? How can they say yes? You see it in a family constellation. The dramas have no room because the belief in the dramas is causing the imbalance, not healing it, yeah? So when you do the work of Bert Hellinger's family constellation, you have to overcome this, how can I put it, this fluffy pink candy thing that is surrounding relationships. It is very basic. Hmm? And it works. It works, and it works not only in family constellation, it works in families as well. So it's not only for facilitators, it's in your own family, it works as well. Now don't go out and tell all your friends how they have to do it. How parenting. You won't have the friends anymore. Keep it to
Thinking
yourself. Yeah.
there would be no more theater, cinema,
Exactly.
songs.
Nothing. It was nothing. Exactly, Francesca. That's it. So we keep this wisdom to ourselves and work with it on our own family and with clients if they ask for us to do it, to help them. Okay, so we never smother anybody else with our findings, right? Nobody wants to hear that. Otherwise, they would ask you. Okay, so this is the relationship. I summarize this again. Parent to child, there is only one word that is appropriate, and that is yes, in all its variation. The best sentence for a parent to a child is, I love you. That's it. And that is always true, even if the love has been shown in form of abuse. That doesn't mean that it is right to show love as abuse. That is not what I say. It's just that love is always there, even if abuse happens on a subconscious energetic level, because it's a natural love, the love of nature, not of a person, not of a personality, not of, it's nature's love through the role of a parent. That's the love we are talking about here. Hmm? So I repeat, it's not abuse, it's not equal love. And this is where this rubbish controversiality about Bert Hellinger's Orders of Love came from. This is not what he says, and that is not what it is. Abuse is never okay, of course. We're not saying that. Yeah. But there's always natural flow of love from parent to child. Because the parents cannot help themselves and the children cannot help them. It's just happening. It's happening like you breathe air or the water flows down the hill. That's just what happens. Very unspectacular. It's just like that. All right. So the next relationship we are looking at is the vice versa relationship, the child to the mother or to the. And you all have been in family constellation and have observed that it always starts with a please. So why does it start with a please? Well, we look at the word please next tomorrow in depth, but it starts with a please because please is forming a relationship. Yeah. So when you ask somebody to do something for you, you want to relate to this other. Yeah. Otherwise, you would not ask to do something for you. With a please, you always ask to do something for you. No? Please give me this, please give me that, please say this, please say that, please, that you want something. That means a relationship is literally to relate to each other. And the word please is initiating a relationship. The other might say no. And if the other says no, then the initiation was futile. No relationship happening. But the one who is saying please wants the relationship. And this is actually really interesting when you use this in the real life. You can direct energies a lot with the right word of use of the words yes, please, and thank you, in day-to-day situations. Okay, so the child to the parent wants something. What does a child want? It wants love, it wants nourishment, it wants care, because otherwise the child would simply die, right? And when we talk about the interrupted movement towards the mother, which is module 4 specifically, this is the only way to allow the child to overcome this trauma, with acknowledging what is that it needs the mother with the word please. as you have might seen in lots of family constellations. And you might always wonder, why does it work? Child stands there, stubborn, doesn't want to look at the mother, and then you let, or the facilitator let it say the word please, maybe 3 times. And all of a sudden, the child looks at the mother and wants to go. That is why. It is acknowledging what is. The child needs a mother, and it admits it through speaking it out with the word please. And that can all be done through representatives, of course. Doesn't need to be the child itself. So the relationship to a parent starts with a please. Now, when the relationship to the parent has come to a stage where there is no need for the child anymore, it can stand on its own feet, normally when it's adult, yeah, then it has to go their own, the child has to go his or her own ways. Right? And to go his or her own ways is not going to happen if it's still in the state of please, in the state of need. It needs to come in the next state, in the state of gratitude. And that is the word thank you. So a relationship from child to a parent who has stepped out of the phase of need can only be acknowledged with the word thank you. Or other sentences that are more specific, like I thank you for your support. I thank you for the love you give me. I thank you for taking care of me for so long, whatever. This is the sentences. And the parents would be represented, like the energy of the parents would be very happy to hear that. Because that's another natural law. You don't want your children to stick to you forever. In nature, there is a very specific time for children. And when the children, the pups or whatever chooks, outgrow this time, they are treated like foreigners, right? They are chased away. They are even killed if they don't go, right? It's time for the new litter, and there is no going back. It's time to go, right? And in a certain way, this applies, of course, to humans as well, right? There is a time to leave. But this leaving can only take place when there's gratitude in the form of humans. I don't know about the animal kingdom, but in a human relationship, gratitude is important to leave the relationship with the parents in a good way so love can still flow. Children who are still in need, or which happens much more often, have resentments against the parents, cannot really leave and lead their own happy life. Because they are bound in a relationship to their father, because they haven't stepped up to the gratitude represented by the word thank you yet. So after the please in a child to parent relationship comes inevitably the thank you. When in a family constellation, the child cannot say, or the representative for the child cannot say thank you, guess what? It has to repeat please. You cannot force it. You always have acknowledging what is. And if that's all that happens, then that's all that happens. Because it's just not the right. Oh, we lost somebody. Darshana. Well, I hope he comes through again. So the third word, what comes after the please and the thank you, is yes. Yes, acknowledging, yes, these are my parents. Yes, they came before me in the orders of love. Yes, we are always, what I was saying? Yes, we are always connected through the love from parents to children and children to parents. We're always connected. That's the yes. So the yes comes. So when a thank you is possible for a child in a family constellation, the representative of a child is happy to say thank you to the parents. Then maybe the yes is necessary, maybe not. Maybe it's possible or maybe not. When the yes is not possible, then it's the thank you. So what does it mean to us? The child is still in the phase of leaving the relationship, finding the own way. It hasn't quite done that yet, because then it could say yes to everything, whatever happened. And that is the resolution that comes maybe after lots of family constellations for this particular client or for yourself. It doesn't normally takes much more than one to come through in the mother or father relationship, to come through all these stages, that it's really possible to say yes to everything. Everything as it was. Every single thing in the relationship, in the history with the parents, yes. Because it's just acknowledging what is, because it was so. And it's not a yes, it was good, yes, it was bad. It's just a yes. Yes, it was like it was, it was. Hmm? And once the client or the representative of the client was able to say that to a parent, this client is open to do everything in life, will have success with everything in life. Because remember, success has mother's faith. And that is what happens when the child can say yes to the mother or to the father or both. Okay, I go through the next relationship and then we have a round of questions, okay? And answers. So, partner relationships, and I'm not only talking to about romantic partners, it's just that it is not a child a parent relationship or child ancestor relationship. That means the stream of love is not flowing from the source through the generations downwards to the ocean. That means it is like a lake, right? Where different streams come from different mountains, forming the lake, where they meet equally, man, woman, womb, woman, man, man, whatever. They have no parental relationship. And then from there, it flows down to their children. So this lake situation or ocean situation that we have there, we call partner to partner relationship. And now this starts with a different word. It doesn't start with please, because nobody gives to the other, right? It doesn't start with a please. If a relationship would start with a please, it would tell us it's an immature relationship, and in truth, the partner is seeking the parents, not a partner. So if a partner feels the urge to ask his or her partner please, it's like a child asking the parents. And we all know how this ends after a while. Not good. So in a mature partnership where both partners have come to a stage where they can say yes to their parents, then they can go in a true relationship where they don't seek a parent, where they seek an equal partner. And in this relationship, everything starts with a yes. It's the acknowledging the other partner as equal. It's like, yes, I'm ready for you. Yes, I'm ready for our relationship. Yes, I'm ready when you are. You know, that is the start of a relationship. Of course, if you think of ceremonies, the yes is in the wedding ceremony, the highlight of the ceremony. And that is for a good reason, because in former days, often men and women just met at the wedding. They didn't know each other before. It still happens in a lot of cultures, you know. And they meet there and they have to say yes to start the relationship, right? So in your life, when you want a partner and you are ready for it, and you are versed in family constellation, and you have done lots of family constellations, and you can face your mother and your father with an open heart and say yes to them without any emotions or any restrictions, let's say that way, then you are ready for a partnership. Now you have to look for a partner who has done the same work. Obviously, right? So send them to family constellation, send her to family constellation. Then when this partner is also for this partner is also possible to see father and mother in representative and say open-hearted yes, then you can say yes to each other and truly mean it. And this yes is not a hidden please or a hidden thank you, right? Okay. So the relationship starts with yes. Now let's say we have this relationship. What is the next step in a relationship like this? You want to intensify the relationship, right? You want to be closer. Let's go back to the picture of this old-fashioned tradition where men and women haven't met before. They actually been wed by the parents. Now they say yes to each other. They are together, and now, but they don't have a relationship, right? There has to form a relationship. How do we form a relationship? We ask for it. We ask for something. That is a please. So then this please comes from not the state of need like a child to a father. It comes from an equal state. So it's another please. It's not a please, I need you. No, it's a please, give me your time. Please give me your affection. No? Oh, by the way, Valentine is coming up, eh? How appropriate. So that is the please that is appropriate in relationship, but it can only be applied when the yes has been expressed before. If the yes hasn't been expressed before, what would be the please? It would be like asking mother and father. It would be neediness. Hmm? And then when the relationship was intimate, because lots of relating between them to each other, it might, needs to, the partners might need to move on, because everything that has a beginning has an end. Like, so this moving on in a relationship is expressed through thank you, of course. Because in thank you, you leave behind and you turn away in a good way and go your own way. That doesn't mean you have to leave the relationship, but it can mean that you change it, that you may, well, I don't know, prefer to have separate bedrooms or whatever, and go on your job in another country and still be, together with love, but you move on. And that is a good time to say thank you for everything that has happened before, for everything that has been exchanged, for everything that has been given and received. This is the right way to say thank you. Now, in a family constellation, we apply it exactly as that. We see what the partners are capable of saying to each other to see where they stand. This is where the power of words come in, because you're not just applying them to find resolutions. You're applying them also to find what is. Because if a child cannot say thank you to a parent, you know it's in the state of need. Because it hasn't, it still says please. If a partner cannot say thank you to the other, they don't want to leave the relationship. They still need the relationship. They are still in the phase of please of the relationship. Yeah. So this is how you can suss out what you see in a family constellation. So you suggest to the representative to say these words when you know at what kind of relationship you're looking at. It tells you exactly at which stage of the relationship they are. And again, you only need 3 words and 3 relationships. How easy is that? Right? Okay, the sentences of resolution. When we're talking about the words, yes, thank you, and please, that is easy, but it's sometimes too broad, too general. Sometimes you need to find a resolution in more precise sentences. And most of the sentences we talk about are a translation of the ones that Bert Hellinger used in German because they have been approved. They are great. But you can also find your own sentences. But just don't go too far away from the original because you don't know. You don't know how they work. And you need a lot of experience to do that. So these sentences were coming to Bert Hellinger from the field. He wasn't thinking about them. He wasn't sitting at home writing down all the possibilities of sentences and then thinking, okay, next time I use this, and then next time I use this. That's just not the way. It was what's the English? Etymologisch. It was coming from experience, from the field, the sentences. So they have to come from the field. Otherwise, they are not sentences of resolution. They definitely don't come from the mind. So you cannot think them up. And you don't need to, by the way, because the field is happy to give you the words. That is important. They are always concerned with either reconciliation, which is, let the flow of love flow, let the love flow, or they are concerned with honor and respect in all shapes and forms. So that's either or. Oh, hang on. I wanted a Q&A before we go through this. Okay, let's do that now. To the relationships. Just unmute all your mics, and we have a little chit chat about what has been said. Let me go back so you have it back here. So we have the 3. Oh, what happened? 2, 3. So we have the 3 relationship and the 3 words. Any question? Did you write anything down? Anything came to your mind?
Yes, I just wanted to know with regards to the child, will the child continue being the child right up until the mum and dad have passed on?
Will the child continue to be
the child right up until the parents have passed on or passed away? Like
it
even
has
in their
never to
30s
do has never to do when they die.
Okay.
Because we are talking about the soul energy, and these sentences can also happen 3 or 4 or 5 generations before your client or yourself. So these energies, they are not about a current living child. It could be a child in a family constellation. However, it has nothing to do with passing away. It has to do if the child is able to receive the love from the parents fully, without resentments, without thinking that was not good enough, that was not enough, that was not the way I wanted it, Yeah. And that is the stage when gratitude or thankfulness can come, and that can come at any stage. Some children are with 11, very independent and full of love,
Mm.
because they had no problem to receive the love. And some never. Some are needy to the children are needy to the day they die. And even if the parents have passed away, they would find a partner that is a substitute for a parent. And they would start the relationship to a partner not with a yes, they would start it with a please. They still seek out the parent, right? So it's a pattern that would repeat itself all the time. Did that answer your question? Okay, cool.
It's like, can I?
Sure.
I mean, during the process, one basically sits with the fear of not receiving that love anyway.
You mean the child?
Mm.
So the most the most traumatic experience a child can have is when the mother wasn't there when the child needed it. And that's what we call the interrupted movement towards the mother. And that's the cause that a child cannot receive the love.
It's like the child kind of, I don't know, it's a solution. You decide you're gonna do without it because it's too scary to lose it.
Yep. You just try to, it's like any other trauma, you subconscious. And it's a dismissal of the mother on a subconscious level, because you don't want to get hurt again, so to speak. And you never step out of this energy of please.
But it's like
Because you
the
never received it.
transformation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's complicated to me. It's like if you haven't received it, what you're connecting with is that natural energy.
Yeah. It's a natural energy of love that is kind of interrupted. So it's like, think of the river, that's a natural energy of love, yeah, that flows from the mother to the child, even when the child thinks it hasn't flown because of the trauma.
Mm.
It is like,
Mm-hmm.
now this trauma is like a rock that is plopped in the middle of the stream, no? And now it cannot flow anymore. And it builds up, and it streams, and it builds up, and but it doesn't reach the child, because the child has actually plopped the stone in there.
So theoretically, you could do a constellation and just fix this by saying yes.
No, please. You fix it by saying please, because
yeah. By saying please, by going through the process of saying please, thank you, and then getting to the yes.
Yeah.
But when this process is slow, that's because of the mind.
Subconscious mind.
Right.
It's like any other trauma, it's subconscious. This is why it's so hard to understand and to find. Because
so there is like a time. There is a time that is completely individual. It's something that may change from a person to the other.
I'm not quite sure I understand that.
Or it's like the time the subconscious mind needs to process the information.
The
like
subconscious never processes information. The subconscious lets go. It either holds on or lets go. It's like, it's a very simple mechanism.
Say, like, I'm gonna talk about, I did one constellation where I finally realized how scary it was for me, I don't know when exactly, to think that my mom wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I never felt this way before. So this is started like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now, what I guess now is that there is a time when you process this, and at some point you can say thank you.
Okay, I understand. It's not a process of the mind, but it's a process.
And it's a time, it lasts a time that is depending on the individual.
So it is, when you work with family constellation, it works up to 6 months.
All right.
So you can expect the energy to change from the second of the constellation up to 6 months, and any time in between.
And there are ways one can delay or accelerate the process?
No.
Okay.
Everything that needed to happen happened in the constellation. You could probably, nah, not really. It has been said, it's a bit old school. In my practice, it was never a thing. Yeah. In old school teaching, it was like, don't talk about your constellation to anybody, you know? Keep it to yourself. Don't think about it. Just let it. I never saw it different. If anybody was talking about the constellation later or not, I never saw it different. So I cannot say that. I cannot say it delays it or anything. Yeah. Oh, I have a good yeah, Verna.
My question will come combined with what Darshan was saying. So we are talking with Francesca about when the conscious mind, but that's kind of in the present, when we are having bodies. Yeah. When we talk about in the soul level, there is no conscious mind. So it will be just something that is done and it will work.
Yeah, because
the mother,
subconscious,
please.
It's a feeling, it's a traumatic experience that is stored as a feeling of rejection or anxiety. It's always the fear of death, actually, if you look at it. And that is stored in the soul journey. This is why you see it through the generations. Yes, correct. So when you break your arm, or your leg and you die, this doesn't matter because your body is decaying, right? But the shock from the impact, if it was malicious, let's say somebody broke your arm, right? Because it wanted to hurt you. Yeah. That emotion lives on. And that is what we see in family constellation. And that was what we see in any kind of healing session, right? That lives on. Yeah. So I wanted to come back to this fact with the time, because we have to talk about that anyhow on the course, and now it's a good time because Francesca raised it. I have a brilliant example for this. Just a few days ago happened. So Bert Hellinger's teaching is what I said. From the second of the constellation to 6 months, half a year later, the constellation will work, right? Subconsciously on an energy level. And what is enabled in the constellation will manifest, right? Okay. Now I had a workshop. I don't think any was there here in the year, after the lockdown, half a year ago. And a client came new, was referred to me, completely unspiritual person. And had no idea why and what we are doing there, completely ignorant to that, but had a very severe problem. Psoriasis, you know what psoriasis is? A very severe skin disease where the how peels off. 20 years she had that, 20 years on the whole body, and she was scratching herself like, wound. So a friend who does a lot of family constellations has referred her to come because nothing helped. So she came. We had a constellation. Don't want to say the details, but it had to do with her immigrating to New Zealand from Switzerland 20 years ago. And in the constellation, and that was a new one for me too, her dog showed up. She had to leave a dog behind. And then, well, we did some sentences of resolution, right? And then she sat and she was like totally perplexed, and she didn't feel anything. And then she went home after this workshop and nothing happened. And she wasn't surprised because nothing has happened, ever has worked, right? So that was normal for her. I got a call a few days ago. She wanted to book a session for her husband. And she said to me, and I said, oh, okay. And she said, yeah, because he has something, this ailments, this and that. And obviously, the only thing that ever helps is the family constellation, because her psoriasis is gone. Gone. Completely gone. And she came to me, she showed me the scars. She's scarred all over her arms. Nothing. And it started, and that's what I wanted to say, exactly 6 months after the constellation. And it went away in weeks. The skin healed in weeks.
How couldn't she come back earlier to say, hey, it's
Back earlier, it
healed?
hasn't healed. It took 6 months, right? So that is absolutely to be expected. And you don't need to say that to your clients, or don't need to say experience that for yourself, but you know it, because it can happen anytime before. If you would say, yeah, you will see the effect in 6 months, it's like a prophecy, a self-fulfilled prediction, a self-fulfilled prophecy. Then it cannot heal earlier, so to speak, yeah? But you can say, in general, if you have an intro, if you have a group session or something, or you have a one-on-one, you make an intro, you can say, so the basics of family constellation is whatever is capable of achieving in this session will manifest between now and 6 months. And that was also the reason why, in old school thinking, you should not come to a family constellation before 6 months, which is also make no sense, because it could have healed the next day. You know, whatever was capable of healing. So why not? Why would you wait 6 months? So there was just a precaution, and that was the early days of family constellation, where everybody wanted rules to, you know, to feel safe and have some guidance. And so I think these days are over, to be honest. Yeah. So trust the field. The field will bring everything as it need to, you know, people coming and going as they need to. So there's no reason to be concerned about that, or set too strict boundaries or anything. Okay. All right. Shall we continue, or any other questions? Maybe to the relationships or to the words?
Into the words, when we were into the acknowledgement that you were saying that Bellinger will make anyone to speak and admit, yes, I abort my child, or this or that. In those situations, I don't know. It will be probably hard for someone to say, I killed that person.
Yes,
or,
it is hard.
Yes, plus judgment and other things that come with
hard.
it.
I had that in one of the constellations recently. Maybe one of you was there, I can't remember. Recently, that somebody had to say that, actually.
I was there, and I was one of the...
You was there, yeah.
And I didn't admit anything.
And it worked. It works. It's important. This work is not for the faint-hearted. I tell you that right away. And I mean, as a facilitator, nothing for the faint-hearted. Absolutely not.
What do you mean? Not for
you have to say what you need to say.
Okay.
You know, you cannot say, because you think that's too much for a person, instead of I have aborted the child, something like, oh, I may have, I don't know what to say. I may have, what would you say?
Damaged you.
Damaged you. I mean, that's not even true. I may have not allowed you to live. Let's put it that way, yeah? That has no power. It has no power. It just goes nowhere, right? I killed you, I murdered you, I aborted you, that has power. And because the representative can say that, not the parties that were actually engaged, were the one who has survived, obviously.
In the
that's
case,
hard for them. That's hard for them.
In the case of that coming up, well, the person needs to have a lot of experience, like you. You will say, okay, if I'm representing myself and then you notice that there is something else that I won't be admitting, you will say, we need to call up another representative. We don't know what the other representative is going to represent, but then you call that person to admit it for me.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely what you do. That's absolutely what you do. Yeah, that's a very good way to make that. And you will see the representative will also have problems to say it. It won't be easy, but you can support this representative to say it, right? Very good. Okay. All right. Let's go to the other one. I've been through that. Okay. These sentences of resolution are very simple. A plain English. Yes, very plain English. It's nothing fancy about it, nothing academic. It's nothing complicated. It's very simple words that form a sentence of resolution. They speak directly to the soul, not to the mind. So the soul will react through emotions, right? What you normally see when a sentence is hitting gold or oil or whatnot, often tears will flow. That's a very good sign that the energy is starting to flow. It doesn't have to, but it's often the case. The milder form of tears is you see a softening in the face of the representative who said this sentence of resolution. And the ultimate sign is that the sentence of resolution has hit gold, and this is also the end of a family constellation, is when the client is sighing a relief. When the client is a client, not the representative, when the client is sighing the relief. So always keep your eyes on the client. That's a big beginner's mistake, to be so concerned with the representatives and what, observe them and their gestures and what they do, that they never look at the client during the constellation, who's sitting there observing, right? It's a big mistake. Always look at your client, because you see in the clients, everything in the constellation is resonating, and you see agitation as well as relief. And you're not going further in a constellation, even if it looks interesting or whatever, if the client has relieved tension, because there's nothing to be gained after that. And there's only one. So this is, remember the onions. Now you have the peels. And one constellation is one onion layer. Just one, not two, not three, one, right? Because the energy need to settle. The change has to happen before the next layer can come off. So it's actually a mistake to try to do 2 layers in one constellation. And therefore, you need to know when the first layer has come off of the onion. And the only reliable sign is that the client has a sigh of relief. And that can happen at any stage, so always never take your eyes off the client. And we will practice that in our practice workshops. Okay. So the sentences of resolution are either true or not true. There is nothing in between. So if you suggest to a representative to say a sentence of resolution, you always have to ask, if you're in doubt, because there is no reaction, obvious reaction in the representative, you ask, is this true? And then the representative can tell you yes or no. And if the representative tells you, I don't think it's true. I don't feel that. Then try the opposite. That's the first thing you do. So if you suggest to a representative to say, I have killed you, and they say, let's say the aborted situation, mother child, I have aborted you. And then the representative say, actually, that doesn't feel true, right? Then although it sounds silly, you would suggest to say, I have not aborted you. And it will lead somewhere. That's always the best thing to do. Truth, not true, opposite. Of course, when it's true, you go ahead, you see there will be a change of energy, there will be movements of the souls happening. You go a step, you forget about it, what was, you take the next one. So the sentences of resolution depending on the relationship, as we have seen before, right? So the sentences of resolution are only the long version of one of the three magic words. So a sentence of resolution can always be just one of these words. So when you start to facilitate family constellation, it is really good to stick only to the three words. Because it's much easier not to get confused. So let's see the yes. How does it look in the sentences of resolution? What different, sentences we can form in the family constellation when the yes is the appropriate word? Yes, I take this life with everything it entails. And these are sentences of Bert Hellinger, right? I didn't make them up, and they are proved. So these sentences you learn, because they are coming from the field. And you can use them, but in the way the field is guiding you, of course, right? So you don't have a tick list. Don't sit on your chair with all the sentences of resolution and go 1 to 10 and tick it off. That's not how we do it, right? So you are focused and empty and collected and connected to the field, and you have your toolkit, your plumber's toolkit in the back of your head. And the right tool, meaning the right sentence, will just pop out as a reflex. Okay, so one is, yes, I take this life with everything it entails. The other one, I take this life even at the cost of yours. That's a perpetrator situation, right? So the first sentence is a victim's sentence or a child sentence. And the second line would be perpetrator or an entangled person, either or. You'll see it in the relationship. It's my death and my fate, and I alone carry it. Right? That's a sentence of resolution. That's a yes. I agree to everything that has happened. By leaving it to me, you are honoring my life and fate. That's a yes of an entangled person to the of an entangler to the entangled person. And we will look, when we look at the three basic dynamics in family systems, exactly who's the entangler, who's the entangled person, and how we use it, right? We have some dynamics where you do not apply the yes, yeah, and we go through that now, when to and when not to apply a yes. So when a relationship movement needs to be acknowledged, you know that, it's a yes. That's easy. So you can always do yes when it needs to be acknowledged. But when an unbalance or entanglement is still observed, you cannot use yes. You cannot make it good. You don't have the magic wand as a fairy and douse fairy dust on a wound and it will heal. That's not how we work, right? The wound needs to be ready to be healed. And if it's not ready, it's not ready. Nothing you can do, right? So check with your toolkit if there's an unbalance or an entanglement before you suggest to say yes to a representative. How to apply yes? We apply yes when it's acknowledging what is. We apply yes in order to support moving forward. Right? If there's an energy that wants to move forward, but kind of is not quite doing it, apply the yes. Very powerful to apply yes is to get support of the parent or ancestor. So who's saying the yes here? The parent or the ancestor, not the other person. So the support is towards a descendant from the ones who came before. That's the yes. You can ask for it. So if a representative is in the position of the later, of a descendant, and needs support from a parent or an ancestor, they can say, please give me your support. Right? Please give me something because they came before. Please give me your support. And then the representative of the parent or the ancestor is practically always more than happy to say yes. Now with this yes, the support has been given. And movement can take place. As we said, beginning of a relationship from partner to partner, that is when you apply yes. And when we talk about relationships, that's not so easy as it sounds, right? Not so easy as it sounds, because often the yes cannot be said from one or both partners. And then we know we have to find why. Because we cannot just put our magic wand and say yes, and everything will be good. When not to apply yes is when still in need of love. Yeah, that's very important. A child is still in need of love from the parents cannot say yes. Remember, please, thank you, yes is the last thing. When a victim cannot look at a perpetrator, you cannot let the victim or the perpetrator say yes. It's impossible. And this is actually why this is actually the greatest misunderstanding that has been where Bert Helling is publicly condemned by psychiatrists and stuff, and all these, these professions, the healing professions, because he discovered in his work that victim and perpetrator needs to relate to each other in order to heal. And we are not talking about an actual, remember, traumatized child towards a molester. Of course not. We are talking about representatives that are representing ancient traumas, yeah, from people who have long died. And it's just the energy that is stuck because while they were alive, they couldn't, because obviously of society and rules and ethics and stuff, couldn't relate to each other. They had to be, put as far away from each other as possible, with the result that they are still entangled on a soul level. So when you're working in a family constellation with a victim and perpetrator dynamic, and the victim cannot look at the perpetrator, don't apply the yes. Don't ask him to say yes. Not going to work. Yes towards parents. So That is the yes that comes after the child was able to say thank you, remember? So that's the yes we are talking about. So they can say, I honor and respect you as my parent. And they will not be able to say that if they're in need of love. They just wouldn't be able, like, it's like the apes, you know, the three apes, not seeing, not hearing, not saying. They cannot see their parent, they cannot hear, they cannot say. As same with the representative of such a child. So, but once they can see, hear, and speak, they can say, I honor and respect you as my parent. And you can always say that in the most malicious and vicious and abusive of childhood traumas. That is when forgiving has taken place. Then the child, respectively the representative of the child, can say to the parents, I honor and respect you as my parent. And that's probably all that can be said because it was so bad, right? But that is the children's natural love to the parents, so to speak. Honor and respect. In cultures where it is like a given that children are honoring and respecting the parents, they have a lot less interrupted movements, right? Because it's just not a thing. You have to honor and respect your parents. And you can actually see that a lot in Asia, for example. So a yes towards the parent is acknowledging what is you are the big one and I'm the small one. We work a lot with this sentence because it brings movement. Because it's acknowledging that the parents came first, they are the big ones, they can nourish, they can care, and I, the child or the representative of the child, am small, I cannot look after myself, I came later, I need them, right? And that's an acknowledgement. I honor you and your life's journey and soul purpose is when you see an entanglement with somebody, then this is a yes towards the one who is entangled. Without any judgment, whatever it is, whatever has happened, you always can let them say, I honor your life's journey or soul purpose. Has a strong impact on the movement of the soul. Acknowledging what is again. Finding the truth and admitting it. That's it. Very simple. What goes on between the two of you has nothing to do with me. This is the sentence of a child towards both parents. Now here is the relationship interrupted between the parents, not the parents to the child. But the parent is observing that, yeah, and is stepping in. So taking the side of the mother or the side of the father or anything like this. That's a dynamic, an entanglement. Now the healing words here is yes. What goes on between the two of you has nothing to do with me, because that's the truth. What the parents have going on between themselves has nothing to do with the child. And if the child tries to mangle with them, they are not in the right place. It's a neglecting of the orders of love and will cause an imbalance in the family system, one way or the other. And then the descendants, the children of the children, will have symptoms, will suffer, basically. Yes, towards parents, that's continuing. I acknowledge the love between you and I am not in the place to judge that. So that's again, a child looking at the parents. Because often a child wants to be rather not a child, but a parent. So, you know, daddy's girl and mommy's son, where they will actually, daddy's girl actually wants to marry daddy, because actually daddy's girl thinks she's better than the mother, a better partner. That's what she says, right? She's a better partner for the father. Obviously, that's a neglecting of the orders of love. And now in a family constellation, when this comes up, then that is the sentence of resolution. I acknowledge the love between you, and I'm not in the place to judge that. To the parents. A yes towards the parents is a very simple, without you, I won't exist. I mean, that's obvious, huh? But the obvious truth is often the one that needs to be said, because it gives, because the child, the representative of the child that's in need of saying that, doesn't quite admit it, right? And that's magic. This self-explanatory, obvious things need to be acknowledged, sometimes in a family constellation. You gave me life is the same, pretty much the same towards the parents. And then, yeah, you can think of your own words. That's a little bit of an exercise that you can do at home when you revisit the video recordings. You can pause the recording and think of some sentences of resolution that you might use that are the same, short, to the point, simple, and acknowledging what is. And then you may find a few more sentences, and then you have a better understanding for them, and you can memorize them better. So now, before we go here, we do a little break, because we have already exceeded 1.5 hours. And we all want to stretch the legs and take a breather and drink or eat something. So my clock is of 34, let's call it 35. So we meet at 45, 7:45 a.m. or p.m. And don't forget to turn your video and your mic off when you go on a break. Bye. See you in a bit. So I start again. So coming back to this little example I had, expectations are playing a big role in this work. Now, this woman who came had no expectations at all. She didn't know what she was into. She had 20 years, no success. She tried everything to get rid of her psoriasis, and she just came following a friend, and she had in her mind, well, it wouldn't hurt. You know, it wouldn't hurt. And then for her, this miracle happens. Now her husband comes with the expectation that this family constellation will heal him. And this is why I said to him, I cannot guarantee you that, because his expectations were different. And my experience is that when your expectations, the expectations of the clients are set to a specific goal, that it is less effective. So when a family constellation is at the most effective when the client has already given up. And sometimes you have to come to so many family constellations until you give up. And then the next one will be the one, right? Expectations plays a big role in this work. So just want to say it. And interestingly enough, and I want to share that also with you because I was thinking about that, I also had a psoriasis when in my mid-30s, and it was very severe. I couldn't walk. I had no skin under my soles of feet and no skin on my palms, so I had to wear gloves. It was really bad. And you went to things, I was before I did family constellation, right? But my friend has already done a family constellation training. And I went to and nobody could help, nothing could help. And then I met her, and one day, and she said, shall we do a family constellation with this? And I said, oh, well, go ahead. And she had the figurine board that I also use. And she did a family constellation. I couldn't even follow. I had no idea. It was something with my mother and an ex. I had no idea. Half a year later, no psoriasis anymore. Never came back, right? No expectation. I don't know whether that has to do with psoriasis or not, but that is really no coincidence. In a state where you give up all your hopes and you do it nevertheless, this is guidance. Divine guidance sent you to a family constellation. And this is when it is most effective. Of course, you cannot, your clients come to me only when you have no expectations. That's not working quite like this. Right? And sure enough, you can have expectations. You know, I came to my first family constellation after I had this healing with my friend to a group workshop because I wanted to conceive a child after 5 years. And boom, half a year later, I was pregnant with my lovely son. Yeah. And I did have the expectation, so it worked as well. But it was more like the positive expectations. That's probably the difference. It was to manifest something instead of getting rid of something. Maybe that's the secret. Right?
But you see, even yourself, it was your first time and you were like, oh, let's see what happened. You know, you didn't have the expectation, but you didn't have the belief either, you know, like your clients.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good.
It's interesting, eh? Interesting. All right, let's go back to our slides. Yes towards the children. So what would be the sentence of resolution as a yes towards the children? Meaning from a parent towards mother or father towards the children. They would say something like, I give you my blessings on your way. They would say something, you are free to do whatever you want to do. This is the most loving sentence of resolution a parent can ever give their children. Right? And that truly means that the orders of love are respected and intact. Because if they are intact in the relationship between the parent to the child, they are happy to say that. Yeah. If they are not happy to say that, they are not in order. They are not in the position of a parent. They are still in need as a child. But that I don't want to complicate it in this second module, so we just leave it there. Yeah. But that means that the parents have to work. They have to work. If they cannot say that to a child, they have to work. They have still an unbalanced relationship with their parents. My love will always be with you. It's also beautiful, yes, towards the children. Giving support, assurance. I will always look at you with love is just another way to say it. I'm here when you need me. Very appropriate to say for the parents. You are free to do what you want, but I'm here when you need me. And again, I leave it blank for you to fill it out when you watch the video recordings to find your own sentences of resolution that is in line with these ones that are there as an example, with the ones that Bert Hellinger uses in German, of course. Okay. Yes in partnerships. So we now know that the yes in partnership comes first. What would be a resolution, a sentence of resolution in yes in a partnership? When would you know? Remember, sentence of resolution. When would you know that the resolution has been achieved? When the partners are able to say that, right? That's how it works. So at the beginning of a relationship, I'm now free to be with you is a yes. And this happens because this brief, very simple sentence says, if this comes up, that the whole constellation was about former partners. Or even the relationship with the mother or father. Something was not solved. So this person who is saying this sentence wasn't free for a new partnership. So the sentence of resolution was, I am now free to be with you, which is the yes to the new partnership, which cannot just come out of the blue. You cannot say that like fairy wand. No, there was work before. Something has happened, you know. The work has been done in this constellation to come to this point that this can be said. Another sentence would be, I see you and your love. That's a very, very beginning of a partnership. If somebody is a little bit more distant than the other in a relationship, right? Then at least this is a sentence that can be said, right? Because if somebody can see the other and the love for him or her, they are already relating. It's not intimate yet, but you know, that is probably the first step in this relationship, the only step that it can be achieved in this constellation. Huh? Now I'm fully available for you is the next step. Right? That's also yes in the partnership. So there's more at the end, of course. So at the end of a partnership, you also apply the yes. So it's a little bit like in the circle. It comes from the yes to please, to thank you, back to a yes. So what that could be, of course, when you leave the relationship, right? So the thank you is making it possible to leave the partnership in good. Yeah. And you have to make sure a partnership is left in good terms for the next partnership to be happy. Yeah. And to leave a partnership in good terms, you need to have the thank you and then the yes. So the thank you the yes would be after the thank you. My love will stay even if I have to leave. And this is not talking about romantic love, desires or anything. This is a natural love, especially when there's a child involved. The natural love that is flowing between people, between unity, between us all, right? This is the love that stays, not the needy, romantic, gooey, candy floss thing. That's not the love we talk about. I love you and what is guiding us. That is a sentence that Bertellinger always used when nothing else was possible to say. That what is guiding us is the destiny. And in hardship, in relationships that were hard, yeah, they were bound by destiny together, then that is what actually is capable to say to move on. I love you, and that what is guiding us. That's a yes. You'll always have a place in my heart is, I think, a lovely yes. Because of course, I mean, the relationship was in, I mean, you know, you cannot just cut it out and throw it away. That would not be acknowledging what is. Every relationship that one has is you know, is adding to the energy field, is adding to the soul, is adding, and you really don't want to take it away again. The relationship might end and all the romantic feelings with it, and maybe even the bad feelings with it, but the love that has enriched you, that wasn't there before the relationship, that should stay, because this is what it made for. Oh, we have a visitor and with Wilma. Yeah. Hello. Right. So that will stay. And this is, you'll always have a place in my heart, is a really strong sentence to say. When a partnership has been, you know, left in a good way. Through this is when you have when there are children involved. Through our children, we'll always be connected. That's it. Yes. That's just a fact, right? Nobody can deny that. But it needs to be admitted, because you know how much drama is going on with separations about the children and money and power and all of this and hurt and this and that. Hmm? And it's really not easy to say through our children we always be connected. And in fact, these partners are only capable of saying that when they have resolved all this other thing. Right? Because all this fighting and at the end of a relationship is a please, it's a connection. It's not a thank you leaving. It's a please. Please give me money. It's not polite, please, but it's still a please. Give me money, give me the children, give me your attention, give me. Yeah, that's a please. So just because you say I want a divorce doesn't mean at all that there's any kind of separation happening on a soul level. Therefore, it is super important if you had any of these endings of relationships that you are practicing to say thank you to your ex-partner. From the heart, as often as possible, with a photo or without, or in writing or whatnot. Yeah. Thank you is, leaving behind. Balancing it out like we had in first module, and being able to go because there's no depth left. So then we have some specific relationships I would like to look at you and see what the typical sentences of resolution are there. To the ancestors, like a client or a representative to the ancestors, I honor you and your deaths, because ancestors are dead, right? They are generation 4 to 7. I honor you and your death. I give you a place in my heart. Or relationship to God. You wouldn't believe how often God shows up in a family constellation. Because God, or the source, remember module 1, who belongs, is part of the family system. Shows up. So that's a good sentence to say, I am you and you are me. Now I see you in me. That's a yes. Acknowledging what is. We are one. Right? You are not the father and I am not the child. Thinking of the religious God, right? No. God is within. In relationship to a victim, meaning the perpetrator says it, right, to a victim. Now I see your pain. Because if the perpetrator would have seen the pain in the victim before it happened, he wouldn't have killed it. And I'm talking from the soul pain, not sadomasochistic games, right? It's the soul we are talking about. So this is the sentence of resolution to now I see your pain, acknowledging what is and admitting it. If it's the truth, of course, this is when I said before, if the victim cannot look at the perpetrator or the perpetrator cannot look at the victim, don't apply yes. It's impossible. So first of all, they need to be able to relate to each other by looking at each other. And once they are relating to each other and moving towards each other, then they can say the sentence. The perpetrator, so a victim to the perpetrator, you belong to me, I belong to you, we are the same. Now, this is what was so probably the most controversial sentence that has been sedated in public from Bert Hellinger, because it sounds so shocking. But this is what heals on a soul level. It is just as simple as that. You see that all the time. I have not yet seen an perpetrator-victim relationship where this is not the healing sentence. Because of, in some ways that we will never understand with our mind, to be a victim of a crime is destiny on a soul level. We don't even need to try to understand it because it makes no sense to us, of course, right? But in the broadest picture, you can imagine or not imagine, in the broadest picture of a soul travel, yeah, soul journey, it makes sense. And that is what speaks in a family constellation, only that. We remember to the family system as also belonging somebody who has given an advantage and someone who has received an advantage, which means at the cost of somebody else, which is like killing somebody, making somebody suffer, making somebody poor, making, things like that. So the one who has received the advantage says to the giver, I honor my depth to you. I can never pronounce this, because there's still a depth. He has received something and never balanced it out. So this is acknowledging what is in this relationship. And vice versa, to a disadvantaged giver, you would say, now I see your desperation. Because that's what it was. Virna, you want to say something?
I like to ask before we move forward and then can talk about it. Is in the victim, in the case of a divorce, you say, now I see your pain?
The divorce is not victim perpetrator.
No, okay.
No.
In the perpetrator, you say, you belong to me and I belong to you. We are the same. How? Can you say a little bit more?
Okay, so victim perpetrator is practically always a death, right? We are talking about victim perpetrator relationship practically always that somebody caused the death of somebody else.
That's why they belong.
That's why they belong. Because this is the other traumas are not so traumatic that they have that they are embedded in the soul of the family. It's just when a life has been taken, a life that, that is precious, obviously, right? It's precious. A life has been taken. This is not an order. If you would be religious, you would say only God can decide, which time is over and which not another human, right? So this is why any kind of traumas can be, and maybe they are not showing up in the family constellation because they are not embedded in as a traumatic experience in the morphic field of the family system. But if some life has been caused by death, and it could also be accidents, it does not always need to be malicious intent. Could be by accident as well. That and that is not resolved. So, but remember, when there was a death, then there was a soul agreement, and on the bottom of it, somehow there was a soul agreement. Even if it's, there's a lovely saying that I like, but it's not from Bert Hellinger, it's from Malcolm Southwood. He said, in the universe, there are no mistakes, only misunderstandings, right? And if you think about that, that's about how the victim perpetrator situation comes to pass. Okay? All right, let's move on. Dynamics in family system. So the good news is there are 3 dynamics in family systems only that we need to look at, besides the interrupted movement of the mother. That's not what I'm talking about here. Three dynamics in family systems, which can be entanglements, meaning that several generations are playing a role, and the dynamic is often between several generations, often with a generation that has somebody has passed on, and can be also passed on to descendants, to your own children, children, something. So, so when we talk in module lines about belonging, conscience, guilt, and destiny, these four, what can I call that? Basic principles can form three dynamics in a system, in a family system. And these are dynamic number one, reparation for my sins. Or in German, Sühne für meine Sünden. And this is what we look at now. Tomorrow, we look at the second dynamic in a family system, which is called rather me than you, in German, lieber ich als du, which is related to the word please. And then the third dynamic is I follow you. We look at it on Sunday. All of these three dynamics are a breach of the orders of love. And this is why it's a dynamic, and this is why it comes up in a family constellation, because it wants to be healed. And the good news is, as there are only these three dynamics, there are also easy ways to see which one is in front of you, shows up. So we start today to look at in depth with a reparation for my sins. What is this? So what are sins? We have to ask ourselves, what is this? So sins are built by guilt and ego, basically, right? Sins are nothing that exists, like air or water or you name it, right? Sins is a mind construct. And remember when we talked in the first module about all of these, conscience and so on, personal, collective, conscience, you can do something really bad with a good conscience, and it would not be a sin.
So how can I do something really bad with my mind to be, no,
Yeah.
I
tried that
good.
when I was traveling in India. I wanted to take weed to my brother, and I did. And I traveled telling myself that that was something I was doing for love.
It was
and
okay.
I brought weed. Yeah. I mean, I took a big risk, but in my conscience, I was like completely fine, feeling
Feeling
guiltless.
good about it. Yeah. See? Fantastic. This is exactly how it works. So this is already, you have all experienced it. Sins are mind constructs, they don't exist, right? So why would we want atonement for? How would that even work? Who can atone us for the sin? So in a religious context, sins have been created so somebody can atone, meaning decides about your life. That's all. It's a power game, right? It is not natural. But living in this world, conditioned in this world, sins become an entity in itself, right? And people suffer greatly when they think they have sinned, and they want reparations. And that's a dynamic that comes very often because, especially in a victim-perpetrator relationship, of course, the perpetrator, most of the time, does feel a bad conscience. And it wants to atone for that, to find something, find peace or something like that, right? So this dynamic can be passed on. That's what we see in family constellation, right? So the entanglement is here between the victim and the perpetrator, or a descendant of the perpetrator who wants to atone or reparation for the sins of the perpetrator. That's the entanglement. And that, how does that show up? Self-destructive disease, autoimmune disease. Yeah? Autoimmune diseases are the best example for this dynamic. I come back to this dog and my client because what happened was subconsciously she had to leave her dog behind and it died. It was not in good hands. She had such a bad suppressed subconscious conscience that she developed the psoriasis, which is an autoimmune disease. And when I had my psoriasis and my mother showed up, I was entangled with a former partner of my mother, apparently. So I was not the one who has sinned, but my mother. Sinned, you know, you think it wasn't right. So what is the healing work? Yeah. Francesca?
Should I ask a question now, or will there be a time later for questions?
Go ahead.
Because I wanna know. It's like it doesn't work both ways. So blame is not a thing. Like
blame is the other side, yeah.
But would that create an entity too? If I'm like, if somebody, not even the victim, would tell the perpetrator, "You're guilty of this," would that create an entity too? If the consciousness
no, you would
of
not just you would just acknowledge you wouldn't just need to acknowledge you killed me, or the dog said you left me behind and I died because you didn't care. That's not blame.
That would create an entity.
Yeah, it's not blame. It's acknowledging what is very important.
So that energy would be blocking both the victim and the perpetrator, even if the consciousness of the perpetrator is not acknowledging the hurt.
Hang on, that is too mixed up. So let's take the dog, yeah, because it's such a good example. The dog says to the client, "You left me behind, I suffered and I died."
Mm-hmm.
That is acknowledging what is, and this is how the movement starts. It's not blame.
Yeah, but what if the perpetrator did something bad and doesn't feel guilty?
They never feel guilty.
Emotion.
That's very subconscious. They never feel.
So that generally starts from the victim.
Yes, they never feel the guilt. They just develop subconsciously another way to balance it out by self-destruction. So they either take their lives in the worst way, they develop an autoimmune disease, they become depressed, they stay alone for the rest of their lives. Lots of ways to be self-destructive. That's what.
So it's actually the victim healing the perpetrator.
Often, yeah. One of the ones, either the victim or the perpetrator, have to acknowledge what is. And it could be either the victim or the perpetrator. That doesn't matter. And you see in the family constellation, one of them is willing to do it. That's all you need to know, or all you need to see, and then you go with that. And with one is starting it, the other can follow. So what are the healing words? Acknowledging what is. That's it. Simple.
Maya, in the case of the sins, let's say in the society we grew up with, let's say I was Catholic until a couple of years ago I stopped being Catholic. But there was that thing that made me change because I really disliked the word sin. Why? Yeah. Who said what? You know? But then something else comes up. Like I love my yoga, I love some other things, but then karma comes.
And does what?
And depending on, you know, that every action will have a reaction, and that karma could come and
yeah, what's the point, Verna?
Doesn't it comes to be a little bit like a sin as well?
Why?
When we talk about karma?
Well, no, I don't understand karma and sin in one sentence. Karma is just action and reaction. There is no sin is a mind construct that you think you done something which should never have happened, yeah, but you don't find a way to make it good. That's a sin.
But it's I think it's used in the same way. In a religious culture, you'd be told,
true.
if you do something bad, then you're going to pay with a bad karma.
But this is not thank you, Francesca, that's correct, but it's not the original meaning of karma. And it's not the yogic meaning of karma neither. It's a religious Hindu meaning of karma, which is the same as the dynamic that we're looking at here. Okay, so that's the healing word, is acknowledging what is the healing movement. Away or towards?
Like, no. Kneeling?
Towards. So towards whatever felt as a sin, towards whatever has been done, acknowledging what is and going there, moving with it. That's healing. Not turning around and saying, okay, I have acknowledged it, now I go. There is a bit of a work to do when this happens. Okay. What is the healing gesture? This is a guess. That's a little bit of a guess game here. Just do something with your hands. What would be the healing gesture to get out of the dynamic? Could be hands on the heart, right? Acknowledging what is. Could be, let the love flow from the heart, something like that. Sometimes it's just opening of the arms, so the heart opens. Yeah.
Breathing.
Deep breathing is always good for healing. Very good. Yeah. Okay. So as I said, leads to diseases, accidents, suicides, and deaths. And this is all a sign for this dynamic, reparation for my sins. Now it can be dynamic that happened in real time, or it could be inherited. So the person who has this accidents, suicide thoughts, self-destructive diseases is not the one who has supposedly sinned. It's a descendant who is making this imbalance or this dynamic obvious in a family constellation. And it's normally the one who is entangled, the one with the greatest love in the family. That's normally the case. Because it takes great courage to look at it. And again, neither the family constellation facilitator nor the people who are coming are faint-hearted. Because they wouldn't do the work. It always takes courage, and courage comes from love, deep love for the family. So that's what I said. It's either personal guilt or entanglement. The deep love, we talked about that. So atonement, or the reparation, the real atonement, is to look at the dead and realize the destiny with love and say, okay, it was, I caused it, karma, I caused it, but it was destiny that this happened. I had no choice, so to speak. Yeah, that what needs to be acknowledged. And either the one who is entangled acknowledge that, or better, the one who was the entangler, the original sin, so to speak. Yeah. So in a family constellation, you need to find out, is this an entanglement or is this direct experience? And when it's an entanglement, the family constellation has to be led to the point where the original perpetrator says the healing words, not the entangled person who comes to you, right? That's not the healing part. Okay. The person who comes to you and then shows up in a family constellation, and the ancestors show up where this dynamic shows up, is only there to make this visible. He is not the one who needs healing. He is just the one who makes it visible and who has the symptoms. And the symptoms will go once the original perpetrator has gone through the process of healing or mending, if you will. So this is what I just said. You find the real victim perpetrator and put them face to each other, and then see if the powerful words and gestures will bring a movement from these two representatives towards each other. And once this has happened, the entangled person will be, which is your client, most likely will be relieved, and one way or the other free of the symptoms that were caused by this entanglement, by this dynamic. What else is coming? We talked about that. I don't need to repeat that. So sometimes the emotion that it's a sin comes from an ancestor. So one feels the sin as if it would be, their own, but it comes from an ancestor. And now we have a double dynamics. It is a reparation for my sins, but it's also another dynamic which could be I follow you, which we will look at tomorrow or the day after. So just in your back head, just in the hind head, be aware that dynamics can be combined in a family constellation. Not only one shows up. Sometimes it's two or three, which I don't want to go in details now because we are going too much sidetracked. What is denied in this dynamic reparations for my sins? The relationship with the victim is denied, right? The perpetrator don't want to look at the victim. The perpetrator don't want to acknowledge it. It feels guilt and everything else, and that makes him look away. Yeah, don't want to look there. So in fact, a feeling of guilt or sin is a replacement for the truth, right? The truth is that through causing the death of another person, a relationship on a soul level has been formed. It cannot be taken away. It cannot be atoned for or whatever, reparation, repaired. It has to be acknowledged that there is a relationship. And we acknowledge this through saying yes, through eye contact, through movement towards. And you see this beautiful resolutions in family constellation when victim and perpetrator are lying arm in arm on the floor, or in a virtual situation when they are embracing each other, right? That is when the true love can flow again. And then whoever was entangled with this dynamic feels the relief. And there's nothing about morals in this also. It's just what it is. You see it all the time. Oh, what did I? So what can the perpetrator do if there's still an imbalance? Can do something good for the victim, right? So can say, I bless you, if there's nothing else to do, right? That's doing something good for the victim. When it doesn't, when it is not, when one is not able to give anything to balance this out, this imbalance, they develop the self-destructing diseases, or they live alone, or they get depressed, and they never find a partner, or never have children, or whatever. So everywhere where there's basically a dead, can this dynamic show up, right? It can show wherever you can have a bad conscience. So healing is dedication, devotion, and commitment towards the situation, towards the victim, towards the family of the victim, towards everybody who was involved, but not to look for atonement, right? Just to balance it out, just to give. If you look at the feeling of guilt, you will find out, if you look really deep, into the feeling of guilt, you will find out it is a substitute to avoid going through pain and doing what's needed. If you feel guilt, you just feel guilt and don't want to have to do anything with it. Okay, what's next? Aha, here we are at the end of today. So let's unmute everybody. And let's go see if you have questions in your notes, or if you want an example, a practical example for something I said about that we can look at it, or anything you want that has to do. And I stop sharing. Hang on. Here we go. Okay, so
my experience was when I practiced this the first time, this movement towards the mom, the dad, or the other person, and I said these words like please. It released a lot of heaviness, or like, and I do this now very often. Also, I'm very thankful and more pleased so if you do a lot of practicing family constellation, it helps you also during the day afterwards, because it releases a lot of things or problems. If you are more thankful, or you say sometimes please in the inner side, it's my experience.
Yeah.
Because when you feel this the first time, that this please, or also ich sage schnell in Deutsch, du kannst es dir dann schnell übersetzen.
Okay. I will translate.
Es ist einfach so, du hast einfach gemerkt, wie viel Ballast weggeht, und das kann man ja dann sozusagen in den Alltag integrieren, irgendwie später auch.
So Gabrielle just shared that she felt with this work, with the simple words that she uses more often in her day-to-day business, that a burden falls off and more freedom and more happiness comes to the life, And you don't even need to know why, and I'm saying that now. You don't even need to know why you say please or thank you. It's just the words used intuitively in situations, even internally, not expressed to anybody, right? Is so relieving and healing. Thank you for sharing, Gabriel. That was nice. Lovely. And actually, we could do a guided meditation if you have no questions anymore, and do that.
I don't have questions. I
Yes,
like to
go ahead.
share as well that it does make changes when you constellate one thing and the other. Like I can constellate about one thing, but then it does release some others, and I see the changes around me, and of those things that I think, oh, this is an issue or this worries me, things change and it makes me happy. Things that I have even made a list of, this is what I like to constellate about. I made a list, next time I'm going to constellate about this, I'm going to constellate. But then noticing everything as I change and other people start changing as well. I constellate about this, but then other changes comes around. So there is
Beautiful.
release, through the lineage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. That's why we love family constellation. Yes. There's yet to be shown another mythology who has this constant results, I think.
And thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's spend the remaining 20 minutes with the guided meditation. Yeah. So sit upright. Try to find a situation where you can sit comfortably but with unsupported spine if possible. And then you start to relax the shoulders, the chin and the neck. You may want to close your eyes, relax the eyelids, and you feel the heaviness under your buttocks, under the feet, maybe under your legs if you are sitting cross-legged. Wherever you touch the ground, that is where you feel the heaviness and the support of earth carrying you. You don't need to do that. Earth is doing that for you. And you feel the energy that's flowing through your spine. And you feel the lightness in your shoulders, in your head, connecting you to this heaven. And you start to deepen your breath. Breathe deep into your belly. And exhale by drawing in the abdominal muscle and following the breath, how it leaves your body all the way up to the nose. And on the inhale, you follow the breath through the nostrils, through the lungs, all the way down into your belly, into the coccyx even. And these kind of breaths continuing for a while. And you feel how relaxed you are with every breath, how every thoughts fall away, feelings and emotions of the day, of the moment even, where you sink deep into your space of happiness, peace, tranquility, a space where you are always in the now, a space where nothing is of a problem. There are neither excitement, just a peaceful state of being, enjoying to be alive. And in this place, which we call the happy space. And it can have any kind of shape that you want to give it. It could be indoors or outdoors. It could be the mountaintop, seaside, a meadow, a hut in the mountain, maybe your own room, maybe an office, maybe a bedroom. This happy space, you see yourself, and you might have not a certain age that you have now. You might are younger or even older. Just watch yourself in this happy space. And then you realize how your heart fills with desire. A desire could be anything, whatever comes up. It's a heartfelt desire. And this desire is connected to a person. And in your happy space, you invite the person to come. And this person is coming. And you look at this person and you say, please, please fulfill my desire. And you might repeat it up to 3 times and say it in your own language, in your mother tongue. And then just see what happens. And whatever happens, accept it as it is. Your desire might be fulfilled, your wish might be granted, or might not. Whatever it is, you're acknowledging it by saying yes to the person. And you might want to repeat it 3 times in your own language. And you want to just stay in your happy space. And you observe yourself and the person and what happened after you said yes. And allow some time to pass and the dynamic to unfold, the movement of the soul. And then whatever has evolved, whatever has happened, you look at this person that you have invited in your happy space and say to this person, thank you. From the depths of your heart, in your own language, a heartfelt, I really mean it, felt thank you. It could be a thank you just for showing up. It could be a thank you for so much more that has happened between you and the person. And you see how this person slowly turns around and leaves your happy space. And you just feel into yourself how that feels now. How do you feel compared to before? Just notice it. You don't judge it. You don't think in terms of good and bad. Just notice it. Do you feel more relaxed or more attention? Do you feel more desire or less desire than you had? And you take note as if you would have a notebook where you can write it in, like a diary. And then you forget about all this and you invite into your heart another emotion. It is the emotion of gratitude. It's a deep, heartfelt emotion of gratitude for whatever comes to your mind. Pick the first thing that comes. And then you invite a person into your happy space that you want to express your gratitude to. And you might see yourself changing your age, your size, your hair. And then the person appears that you have invited in. You might know the person, you might not know the person. Whoever comes, invite him to come closer. And then you say from the bottom of your heart to this person, thank you, in your own language. And you might repeat it several times with increased intensity. Thank you. Thank you. Then you just observe what is changing in you, in the person, in the environment, maybe a happy space even. Just watch what is changing. And whatever change has occurred, you open your heart, let it in, receive it full, and say to it and to the person all at once, yes, so it is. Yes. Then you see how this person goes away, and you watch yourself in your happy space integrating this change of energy. And then you look even deeper into your heart and you find in the depth of your heart a pure and simple and all encompassing yes to everything it is in your own life, in your path, in your family, in your job, your neighborhood, in your country. A yes to even the worst of environmental problems just because it is. And there's no denial. And with this ability to agree what is, you see a person coming into your happy space. It is a person that was the least person you could say yes to, or maybe even more than one. But now that you have a yes for everything that is in this moment, in the whole world, in the whole universe, you can also say yes to this person. So you find this connection to the whole world in your heart and say yes in your own language, in your own time, a few times. And then you take notice how this person slowly goes. And you take notice about the changes in yourself, changes in your environment, in your happy space, in your body, in your mind, maybe in your emotional body, changes in your family. Just take note, don't judge it, just write it down mentally in your notebook. And enriched with it, you come back into your room where you are sitting. Take a deep inhale and an open mouth exhale. One more time, inhale and exhale. And in your own time, gently open your eyes. And I invite you to just go out of the meeting and stay in the space if you wish. and I see you tomorrow. Or you stay in the meeting, unmute yourself, and share if you want to share. Your choice. If you like to stay, please unmute and share a little bit what you have experienced.
Is everybody leaving?
Not everybody, you are here. You would like to share? We're still recording.
uh,
You have still 3
I don't
minutes.
know. It was very yeah, a little too rushed. It's like many characters, but
Uh-huh.
and I was pretty impressed because I always have these people coming up that are. This one looked like Frankenstein monster a little bit, like yeah, it had no face,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I've had this idea at some point of somebody who's like has taken me here,
Mm-hmm.
like looking for resolution of something that is in a very far past.
Mm-hmm.
Have this feeling of, yeah, even my desires and my reasons to look for a healing are like ways to guide me through this because of
Yeah.
the need of some ancestor.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful.
It's some, yeah, it's something that came up before while you were saying something, and now in the visualization, I saw this man, and I really don't know where he comes
The
from.
Frankenstein one.
Yeah, it's like I need you to take care of healing our system.
Wonderful.
And I actually said, yeah, okay, but realize my desires. I'm gonna do that anyway. Just let me have what I want.
Very good. That's
Yeah,
big. That's big.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Good
beautiful. I
connection.
find these meditations are super powerful.
Mm. Yeah. Yes.
Like just as much as a constellation to me.
They are always kind of a consolation. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Francesca. And
Thank you.
now I say good night and I see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Bye.